Hello everyone. In this presentation, I am going to show you some example of accessibility when creating content for e-learning. During this presentation, I want to show you good and bad examples, and you will see the difference and how it can greatly influence the quality of the final product, the way things are displayed, and how even if the message you want to convey makes perfect sense, everything can fade away if we do not take into account certain aspects when presenting and displaying our speech. We will address two main topics, legibility, and also we must not forget about color and contrast, which are very important to highlight one content over another on the same plane. But wait. Perhaps some of you have already noticed that the lesson has already begun, and this is an example of how not to make a PowerPoint presentation according to legibility aspects. As you can see, it's hard to read. There is no outline, no keywords, and the text you can see and read is exactly the same which I am saying right now with my voice. So this slides shows us the way of how not to do it. But I'm going to take advantage of the next slide to show you the correct way to present a slide. At a glance, you can already get an idea of what I'm going to talk about because only the keywords that I want you to understand and that I'm going to develop appear. This leads me to remind you that the first principle of web content accessibility guidelines is that the information conveyed must be perceivable. One of the characteristics that contributes especially to this is that the elements are distinguishable, separating the background from the foreground. The Web Content Accessibility Guidelines establish three levels of compliance: A, which is low, AA, which is medium, and AAA, which is high. Depending on whether a series of rules are met, a level of conformity or another will be obtained. We have already seen an example of legibility, and now I'm going to explain another very important aspect, because the use of color and contrast are essential, as people with vision difficulties may have trouble differentiating objects if this only depends on color or if there isn't a minimum contrast between elements. So a very important concept here is the contrast ratio. The range typically varies between 1:1, which is no contrast, to 21:1, which is maximum contrast. But as you can see here, 7:1 ratio is enough in almost all cases. So the fact that a text meets the criteria for minimum and enhanced contrast will not only depend on its contrast ratio, but also on its size and whether the text is bold or not. The following table provides some examples, and now you can pause the video to carefully examine the table and see the requirements to achieve the WCAG compliance levels. Here we have another example, in this case, adding text to an image, which is very dangerous, as you can see, because the text is almost illegible. So it's necessary to increase the contrast in order to obtain a better result, like this. And now let's talk about color. Criterion 1.4.1 of the WCAG states that color should not be the only visual means to convey information, indicate an action, request a response, or distinguish a visual element. This doesn't mean that we should not use color, but rather that it should not be the only means. Redundant information can be provided using shapes, position, and text. A good metaphor for the use of redundant information is a traffic light, where color information is reinforced with the image of the ample man performing the action. Another example is instructions for interaction based on color, such as selecting available seats on a cinema, for example. An accessible solution is to use a symbol that also distinguishes them, as shown in the image on the right. And finally, an example with charts and data representation. For example, a person may have a difficulty relating a legend to the colors in this pie chart. So to address this, we have two solutions. On the left one, the names of each category have been added next to each sector, and on the right one, solid colors have been replaced by patterns in addition to color. So, well, to wrap things up, this is the website where we have obtained the documentation for this video and where you can also find more detailed information. Thank you very much for your attention.